Hello, today I want to do the lesson A Wrong Man in Workers' Paradise by Rabindranath Tagore. Now, Rabindranath Tagore was a famous author who wrote short stories, poems, plays, essays, and he has even written the national anthem of our country. In this story, which we had in the first PU textbook of 2002 2003, the poet brings out the difference between art and normal work. So, whereas normal work is a routine, art doesn't follow any rules. Its only function is to make to make something more beautiful. So here uh, we have this story, which is again a wrong man in workers' paradise. So we'll read the story. The man had never believed in mere utility. Utility means usefulness. So the idea is that whatever we do should have a use. There must be a certain goal, a certain end, something achieved. But the man had never believed in only the use of something. Having had no useful work, he indulged in mad whims. So, this man, he did whatever came to mind. He was whimsical and he did not seem to have any useful work. There is useful work, for example, like office work, where you go from 9 to 5 to an office and then do the allotted work and come back. So he didn't have any routine work, so he did whatever came to his mind. He was whimsical. He, he made little glass sculptures, men, women, castles, quaint earthen things dotted over with seashells. He painted. And so he was an artist. He made little pieces of art, like little pieces of sculpture of men, women, and castles. And he made pots of clay, and these pots were covered with seashells. He painted. Thus, he wasted his time on all that was useless, needless. So, throughout his life, he did something artistic. So, art doesn't have any particular function. For example, if you take a chair, it has a certain function. We use it to sit on. Any object we see around us has to have a particular function. But art doesn't have any functional uses. So, this artist, he spent his time on all that was useless, needless. He spent his time on doing artistic things. People laughed at him. So people laughed. They wondered why, he did these things. At times he wanted to shake off his whims, but they lingered in his mind. So sometimes he felt that, he should do something useful. But the tendency to do something artistic stayed in his mind. Some boys seldom ply their books and yet pass their tests. A similar thing happened to this man. He spent his earth life in useless work, and yet after his death, the gates of heaven opened wide for him. So, just as some boy hardly ever read, yet pass the test, something similar happened to this artist. On earth, in his life, he spent his time on useful work, yet after his death, his soul went to heaven. So even though he had done nothing useful in his life, he went to heaven. But the moving finger writes even in heaven. So it came to pass that the aerial messenger who took charge of the man made a mistake and found him a place in workers' paradise. So, says that, fate, it is a moving finger. Moving finger writes our fates on our foreheads. So the moving finger of the Creator writes even in heaven. Even our fates are decided in heaven. So what happened was that the angel, the aerial messenger, who took his soul to heaven, found him a place in workers' paradise. He was an artist, but he went to workers' paradise. That is the place where the souls of workers go to after they pass away. In this paradise, you find everything except leisure. So, just as the workers had worked throughout their life doing useful work, even after their death, they went on doing useful work in heaven. So, in workers' paradise, you find everything except leisure. So, the people had got whatever they wanted through their work. You could find everything except leisure because they were always busy. Here men say, God, we haven't a moment to spare. Women whisper, let's move on, time's flying. All exclaim, time is precious. We have our hands full. We make use of every single minute. They sigh complainingly, and yet these words make them happy and exalted. So in workers' paradise, people say, we haven't got a moment to waste. And the women say, let's move on, let's do something. Times are flying, time's moving quickly. And everyone says, time is precious, mustn't waste time. And they always had their hands full, and they made use of every single minute. They complained, yet when they talked about how time is precious and about how they hadn't got a moment to spare, they felt happy and exalted. But this newcomer who had passed all his life on earth without doing a scrap of useful work did not fit in with the scheme of things in workers' paradise. But the artist whose soul had gone to workers' paradise did not fit in because his soul continued to want to do useful work, to do artistic work. So he did not fit in with the scheme of workers' paradise. He lounged in the streets absently. So he went to the streets and waited in the streets in an absent-minded way and jostled the hurrying men. He elbowed the people who were hurrying past on the street. He got in their way. He lay down in the green meadows or close to the fast-flowing streams and was taken to task by busy farmers. He was always in the way of others. And so he loafed in the streets and got in the way of people who were walking in a hurried way to their work. He lay down on the fields and next to the flowing streams, listening to the sound of the water flowing, and busy farmers scolded him, and he was always in the way of others. A bustling girl went every day to a silent torrent. Silent, since in the workers' paradise, even a torrent wouldn't waste its energy singing to fill her pitchers. So, a busy girl, bustling with activity, went every day to a silent river which was flowing very fast. It was a torrent. This torrent was silent, it did not make any noise. Because in workers' paradise, not even the water wastes its energy by making noise. And the girl went there to fill her pitcher. There is a pot of clay pot. The girl's movement on the road was like the rapid movement of a skilled hand on the strings of a guitar. So the movement of the girl as she walked, as she swayed, was like the hands of a guitarist on the strings of his guitar. It was a very musical walk. Her hair was carelessly done. Inquisitive wisps peeped often over her forehead to peer at the dark wonder of her eye. So she had hurriedly brushed her hair and kept it in place, but some wisps of hair fell over her forehead and over her eye. The idler was standing by the stream. As a princess sees a lonely beggar and is filled with pity, so the busy girl of heaven saw this one and was filled with pity. So this artist who was standing there doing nothing, and just as a princess sees someone on the street, a lonely beggar, and is filled with pity for him, so this girl of a workers' paradise saw this artist and was filled with pity. Aha, she cried with concern. You have no work in hand, have you? So the girl asked him, you don't have any work, that's why you're standing here doing nothing. The man sighed, work? I have not a moment to spare for work. So the man was surprised. He wondered why the girl asked him about work. And he said, doesn't have a moment to spare for any useful work. The girl did not understand his words and said, I shall spare some work for you to do if you like. So the girl said, she'll give him some work to do. What kind of work would you like? The man replied, girl of the silent torrent, all this time I have been waiting to take some work from your hands. What kind of work would you like? Will you give me one of your pictures, one that you can spare? She asked, a picture? You want to draw water from the torrent? No, I shall draw pictures on your picture. So the man said he had been waiting to get some work from the girl. And the girl asked him what work would he like to do? And the man asked her for a picture, the clay pot. And the girl asked him if he wanted to draw water from the torrent or the river. And the man said no, he wanted to draw pictures, paint her clay pot. The girl was annoyed. Pictures indeed. I have no time to waste on such as you. I am going. And she walked away. So the girl did not understand the value of a picture, the worth of a picture, what it was useful for, and she left annoyed. But how could a busy person get the better of one who had nothing to do? Every day they met, and every day he said to her, girl of the silent torrent, give me one of your clay pictures. I shall draw pictures on it. So a busy person always does something in a routine way. He goes to the same place, does the same thing. Whereas the person who has nothing to do just waits, doing nothing. So she could not get the better of him. Every day the girl went to the torrent and every day he was waiting for her. And every day he said to her, give me one of your clay pots, I want to draw pictures on it. She yielded at last. She gave him one of her pictures. So finally she gave him one of her clay pots. The man started painting. He drew line after line. He put color after color. When he had completed his work, the girl held up the picture and stared at its eyes, her eyes puzzled. So the man started to paint the clay pot and he drew line after line with his paint and brush and he put in color after color. When he had completed his work, the girl inspected the clay pot and she stared at the clay pot, painted clay pot, and she was puzzled. Brows drawn, she asked, what do they mean, all those lines and colors? What is their purpose? So the girl asked him, what is the meaning of a paint of what he had painted. What is the use of what he had painted? What function do they have? Nothing. A picture may have no meaning and serve no purpose. So the artist said that what he had drawn had no meaning and it did not have any particular function. The girl went away with her picture. At home, away from prying eyes, she held it in the light, turned it round and round, and scanned the painting from all angles. At night, she moved out of her bed, lighted a lamp, and scanned it again in silence. For the first time in her life, she had seen something that had no meaning and no purpose at all. So the girl was drawn to this painting on the clay pot and she spent a lot of time inspecting it. When she set out for the torrent the next day, her hurrying feet were a little less hurried than before. The next day, all this pondering over the painting made her a bit more languid. She did not hurry to the torrent as she did the day before, for a new sense seemed to have awakened in her, a sense that seemed to have no meaning and no purpose at all. So, for the first time, she got the idea of something that had no function and no purpose and no use and yet existed. She saw the painter standing by the torrent and asked in confusion, "What do you want of me?" "Only some work from your hands." "What kind of work would you like?" "Let me make a colored ribbon for your hair," he answered. "And what for?" "Nothing." She asked him what he wanted of her, and he said he wanted a colored ribbon. And she asked why, and he said, for no use, for no reason. Ribbons were made, bright with colors. The busy girl of workers' paradise had now to spend a lot of time every day tying the colored ribbon around her hair. The minutes slipped by unutilized. Much work was left unfinished. So the girl now spent a lot of time tying ribbons in her hair, and the time passed. And since every minute of the time in workers' paradise had to be utilized to do some work, much work was left unfinished. In workers' paradise, work had of late began to suffer. Many persons who had been active before were now idle, wasting their precious time on useless things such as paintings and sculpture. So in workers' paradise, everyone got infected by this art, and they spent their time doing art, and they did things like painting and sculpture. Elders became anxious. So the leaders of workers' paradise, elders, they became worried. A meeting was called. All agreed that such a state of affairs had so far been unknown in the history of workers' paradise. So in the history of workers' paradise, no one had shirked the work and everyone had been doing the work conscientiously and paid attention to every little detail for as long as they knew. But now something new had cropped up in workers' paradise and everyone seemed to be doing, becoming lazy. The aerial messenger hurried in, bowed before the elders, and made a confession. So the angel who had bought work artists sold to workers' paradise hurried in and made a confession. "I brought a wrong man into this paradise," he said. "It is all due to him." So the angel explained that it's due to the artist who the angel had brought in by mistake to workers' paradise. The man was summoned. As he came, the elders saw his fantastic dress, his quaint brushes, his paints, and they knew at once that he was not the right sort for workers' paradise. So they summoned the artist before them. The elders summoned the artist before them, and he was dressed like an artist. And they knew at once that he was not dressed in casual clothes or work clothes, and he was dressed gaudily and colorfully. So they knew that he was not the right sort for workers' paradise. Stiffly, the president said, "This is no place for the like of you. You must leave." The president said that the artist must leave workers' paradise. The man sighed in relief and gathered up his brush and paints. But he was about to go. The girl of the silent torrent came up tripping and cried, "Wait a moment, I shall come with you." So the man was relieved, the artist was relieved that he had to leave Workers' Paradise, and he gathered up his brushes and paints. But as he was about to leave, the girl who he had met came skipping along and said that she would come with him. The elders gasped in surprise. Never before had a thing like this happened in Workers' Paradise, a thing that had no meaning and no purpose at all. So finally, uh, the artist had influenced the girl to such an extent that she left with him, and there was no particular meaning in her leaving. There was no function, and there was no purpose in her leaving. So this is a story of Workers, a wrong man in Workers' Paradise by Rabindranath.